Chapter 473 Fight. The seventh envoy had died. Lin Feng had killed him with a single attack. Even though the people from Shuiyu had anticipated it, they were still astonished. Lin Feng's strength was, as expected, terrifying. He was able to kill a cultivator of the fourth Xianqi layer in one attack. Besides, they all understood that Lin Feng hadn't used his full strength. The people from Tianfeng were absolutely astonished. They fixedly stared at Lin Feng and at the corpse on the ground. The seventh envoy from Tianfeng was still a young man and was extremely strong. He had arrived in Shuiyu for a banquet, to enjoy food and alcohol, but he lost his life instead. He hadn't even made it to the great competition and was already dead. He was killed by someone from Shuiyu. Shuiyu and Tianfeng were countries under the jurisdiction of the Dragon Mountain Empire, so they were eternal rivals. A short time before, both sides had been very aggressive towards the other. They both believed that their country's fighter would win. However, Lin Feng killed him with one attack, which was like pouring a bucket of cold water to the people from Tianfeng. They were all pulling a long face. Lin Feng had surprisingly killed him, without a shred of mercy. Shuiyu is indeed a good country with extremely strong junior cultivators. However, my country Tianfeng came to Shuiyu with nothing but politeness and courtesy, yet surprisingly, you dare to kill one of our fighters. I hope that you can explain yourself, said the fifth envoy in an ice-cold tone while staring at Lin Feng. The people from Shuiyu were gobsmacked. A moment before, they had accepted the terms of battle, and now that the seventh envoy was dead, they wanted an explanation? Ridiculous. You're just shameless trash, you deserve no face at all, said Lin Feng towards the fifth envoy. Then he joked. Could it be that the geniuses of Tianfeng can't accept defeat and are just a bunch of sore losers? Of course, I am indeed sorry. It must have been very difficult for a country like Tianfeng to raise the seventh envoy. Killing him so quickly was inappropriate, joked Lin Feng again while laughing, which shocked the people from Tianfeng. Lin Feng was saying that it was difficult for Tianfeng to raise the seventh envoy, but it was extremely easy to kill him. He was mocking their strength. Maybe, but he was an exception, said the fifth envoy, refusing to lose out. He obviously wasn't going to admit that the seventh envoy was in the wrong and overestimated his own power. If he was an exception, you are free to prove me wrong. Same rules, a battle to the death. Put your life as the stake if you are so confident, said Lin Feng while looking at the fifth envoy. He was calmly challenging the envoy. In Shuiyu, the 8 high officials were comparable with the 7 envoys of Tianfeng. It was a national ranking for both countries. Lin Feng was assuming that the fifth envoy of Tianfeng, even though he was probably extremely strong, he wouldn't be stronger than Wuxia. He was probably at the same strength as the 5th or 6th high official of Shuiyu, which meant that he would only be as strong as Yu Qin or Chu Zhanpeng, whom he had killed. Chu Zhanpeng's strength was already clear to Lin Feng. Concerning Yu Qin, Lin Feng didn't know exactly how strong he was, but he wasn't scared of him. Lin Feng was challenging the fifth envoy because he made impertinent remarks, but also because he wanted to measure his own strength and push himself forward. Battles to the death were extremely beneficial for him. Challenging the fifth envoy would force Lin Feng to use all of his strength. If he lost, he would die. Such battles forced out his hidden potential. No one knew what to say. Lin Feng had just killed the seventh envoy, and was surprisingly challenging the fifth one. And on top of that, he was asking them to wager their lives. How aggressive! Those who were sitting on the main seats were also watching Lin Feng. They all had radiant smiles. That young man was very interesting. Wuxia thought highly of Lin Feng, and Lin Feng had also obtained the princess heart. Lin Feng was surrounded by incredible personage, and was also the son of 2 of the most amazing cultivators of Shuiyu, Yu Menghe and Lin Hai. His parents had rare talents. Their son wouldn't differ much from them. His strength was clear to everyone. Besides, Lin Feng's fighting style surprised the people from Tianfeng. They were able to determine that Lin Feng was really at the 3rd Xianqi layer, but during the battle with each step, his energy grew stronger and more powerful, borrowing energy from the atmosphere. Lin Feng had a deep understanding of energy and forces, which clearly showed in his previous attack. He released sword qi, which invaded the entire atmosphere. It didn't condense into a sword, instead it took the shape of a sword without condensing, as if the energy was a formless sword. Lin Feng had taken force and energy from the atmosphere and condensed it into his own energy. He released a powerful deadly energy and a powerful sword chi which he used to form an energy attack. That energy attack rushed through the air and killed the seventh envoy with ease. Lin Feng's strength wasn't clear. It was unexplainable and unfathomable. Some people have even suspected that he had broken through to a mysterious cultivation dimension, the Earth fusion dimension. It would explain how he would have been able to release a power equivalent to the fourth Xianqi layer, while still being at the third Xianqi layer, another battle to the death. Lin Feng was challenging the fifth envoy while looking calm and unperturbed. Could Lin Feng be so fearless if he wasn't sure of his victory? They couldn't see through Lin Feng. The biggest problem was, how would the fifth envoy escape from the position he put himself in? The fifth envoy was at the peak of the fourth Xianqi layer. He was much stronger than the seventh envoy, but he still only had the strength of the fourth Xianqi layer. Lin Feng had easily been able to kill the seventh envoy. Would he be able to kill the fifth without a problem as well? If you like battles to the death so much, I will have one with you, said the third envoy at that moment, which made people from Shuiyu sneer at him. He was being ridiculous. Are you guys going to battle against him one after the other? Said Yu Tianming. Do you think that we, cultivators from Shuiyu, will sit here quietly? If you want to fight him one after the other, we will also fight. We can ask the ambassadors to organize the battles for us. When people from Tianfeng heard Yu Tianming, they remained silent. Yu Tianming also thought that those people were being extremely rude. The third envoy wanted to fight against a cultivator of the third Xianqi layer. That wasn't a fair challenge. The cultivators from Tianfeng are just shameless bastards. I haven't seen a single outstanding cultivator on their side, but they are experts at flapping their mouths. They're just a bunch of cowards with big mouths. Ha! These envoys dare to regard themselves as infallible. Lin Feng slowly moved back to his seat. Everyone saw Duan Exine Yi look towards him in a soft and gentle way while raising her glass in his direction. Lin Feng had refused to get her involved and use her as a wager. Because the seventh envoy had dared to ask such a thing, Lin Feng killed him. Duan Exine Yi was moved by the sentiment. Lin Feng attached a great deal of importance to such things, proving that he cared for her, which made Duan Exine Yi happy. Of course, because Lin Feng had just killed the seventh envoy, the banquet wasn't as lively as it once was. Everybody had abruptly stopped their conversations and silence invaded the air. Everyone in the pavilion had different expressions on their faces. They were all thinking different things, but nobody said a word. Chapter 474. Sword Intent. Everybody, why the long faces? Being able to sit and drink together is rare. Let's make new friends and be merry, said one of the ambassadors while smiling when he saw that the atmosphere was tense. I forgot to tell everyone my name. My name is Ruolan Shan, said the ambassador while raising his glass, and then continued. Being able to meet the eminent people from your two countries is an honor for me. Cheers. Ruolan Shan raised his glass and everybody, out of respect, did the same. On my left is an elder of the Cosmic Pavilion. His name is Yao Tianshu. The one to my right is an outstanding young cultivator from the Empire. His name is Jian Chan. You should speak with them and exchange your thoughts and ideas about cultivation. Yao Tianshu and Jian Chan slightly nodded at the people in the pavilion. Alright, Wuxia, you should bring the zither players and dancers back. It's good to enjoy the arts, said Ruolan Shan while smiling. Duan Wuxia slightly nodded and waved at some servants in the distance. A short moment after, another group of dancers arrived with another woman to play the zither. Unfortunately, many people didn't feel like enjoying the show. At that moment, every person from Shuiyu and Tianfeng looked tense. Yun Feiyang grabbed his glass and walked towards where Lin Feng was seated. He then raised his glass in front of Lin Feng without saying anything. He just continued smiling. Last time I forgot to say thanks. Let's drink together, said Lin Feng respectfully. He then immediately downed his glass. Yun Feiyang smiled and did the same. It's nothing, don't mention it. You have offended quite a lot of people and must have things to do, so I won't waste your time, said Yun Feiyang while laughing, and then went back to his seat. Yun Feiyang had just started walking away when Feng Chun arrived by Lin Feng's side. He passed by Yun Feiyang but didn't say a word. Today I am able to see a genius whose talent is extremely rare. You killed my seventh envoy, congratulations. said Fengchun while smiling towards Lin Feng. He was saying nice things, but in reality his words were empty. He wasn't showing his real face, he was actually furious on the inside. He was very good at hiding his emotions, which made Lin Feng sigh with exasperation. People who were born into nobility with a silver spoon in their mouths were extremely exhausting to understand. Fengchun actually wanted to kill Lin Feng, but he hid it behind a gentle smile, which made Lin Feng look at him with new eyes. The seventh envoy was foul. His mouth only spewed shit. That kind of person is a humiliation for you and your country. Fortunately, I killed him so your country doesn't need to worry about him losing your face, said Lin Feng while smiling as if he had done him a favor by killing the seventh envoy. Oh, we should be grateful to you then, said the third and fifth envoys while walking towards him. Their voices were cold. Besides, they released a faintly discernible deadly energy which pricked at the skin. When Lin Feng sensed the energies against his body, he smiled coldly and also released some deadly energy which pierced back towards them. Kacha kacha! The glasses of the third and fifth envoys broke in their hands and the alcohol splashed all over them. They slightly closed their eyes when their glasses broke, as alcohol splashed over their faces. They were shocked and remained motionless like statues. At the same time, they stretched their hands up and wiped the alcohol from their faces and then glared at Lin Feng. Drink! Why be so serious? The glasses couldn't handle our immense power, said the third envoy. The crowd looked at them. It seemed like their glasses were broken because they gripped with too much power. However, they released an oppressive energy which targeted Lin Feng and he counterattacked, which was why the glasses broke. They were actually surprised Lin Feng targeted their glasses. Lin Feng doesn't even intend on being polite, they thought. Lin Feng had immediately shattered their glasses and made them lose face. They were covered in alcohol like a drunkard. He was too aggressive. The third and fifth envoys hadn't thought Lin Feng would be so aggressive. Of course, they had provoked Lin Feng first. Lin Feng wasn't being arrogant. He was only responding to their provocation. He wasn't going to let such detestable people bully him. Those two had secretly released their energy which attacked him, which was clear provocation. Besides, his counter was brilliant. The alcohol is quite strong, said the third envoy while licking his lips. His voice was husky. His face revealed a furious expression. He couldn't hide his emotions well. Lin Feng had thoroughly humiliated him. The fifth envoy was fixedly staring at Lin Feng while releasing his qi. Haha! Duan Tianlang walked over to Lin Feng, the third and the fifth envoy, and raised his glass. He then said while smiling, "Don't be offended. The seventh and fifth envoys have been offended by Lin Feng killing the seventh, but Lin Feng cares about the princess. He needed to defend her honor. I hope that you can understand." Besides, Lin Feng killed the seventh envoy because his actions were rude and he humiliated the princess. If someone stronger than Lin Feng humiliated the princess, he would act the same way and attack them. That's his temperament. When Lin Feng heard Duan Tianlang speaking as if they were friends, he looked at him in an ice-cold way. "Since when are we friends?" said Lin Feng indifferently. He then added, "Get lost." No one knew what to do. Lin Feng was not being courteous at all. Duan Tianlang didn't seem to care. His son was killed by Lin Feng, so losing face didn't matter to him anymore. He had only one goal left: to kill Lin Feng at any cost. What a vicious and sly person, thought Lin Feng. He was fixedly staring at Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang was just smiling naturally, as if there was no enmity between them as he moved away. However, he had already said what he wanted and the third and fifth envoys had perfectly understood his meaning. Everything would come back to the princess. If someone offended the princess, even if that person was much stronger than Lin Feng would fight them. The third and fifth envoys smiled and moved back to their seats. Fengchun then moved over to Duan Tianlang, and they started talking like they were old friends, which was extremely strange. At that moment, another two people were walking towards Lin Feng, which surprised him. One of them was Lan Jiao, the other one was surprisingly Jianshan, the young man from the Dragon Mountain Empire. "You first," said Jianshan to Lan Jiao politely. Lan Jiao was lacking in manners, so she just moved in front of him without a word. She then raised her glass and said to Lin Feng, "You're quite fast, one on the left, one on the right, you kiss one, you embrace the other." Lin Feng was stupefied and then smiled wryly. Why was she saying such things? Jian Shan was stupefied as well. It seemed like Lan Jiao and Lin Feng knew each other. Besides, her words were a bit strange. Lin Feng had two people by his side. That meant that apart from Duan Xinyi, he had another woman? In that case, Lin Feng was probably very lucky with women. Besides, when Duan Xinyi heard those words, she didn't look surprised. Lin Feng and Lan Jiao raised their glasses together, but Lan Jiao didn't drink. She smiled and said, "That toast was not for you." She then looked at Duan Xinyi, nodded and said, "Princess, your highness, that guy is very lucky to have your heart." "I am the one who's lucky," replied Duan Xinyi in a soft and gentle tone. She then toasted with Lan Jiao and took a sip from the glass. She saw that Lan Jiao looked a bit strange. She looked jealous. Lan Jiao nodded at Duan Xinyi and looked at Lin Feng again. "I wish you the best." Then she turned and went back to her seat. After Lan Jiao left, Jian Shan sat down next to Lin Feng. He then said, "You're also a sword cultivator?" "No, I'm not. I don't have a sword spirit and I don't practice sword cultivation. I only know a bit about swords, that's all," said Lin Feng modestly. Jian Shan shook his head and said, "Your sword skills already contain sword intent. If you are not a sword cultivator, then who is?" "Intent?" Lin Feng was surprised. Even though he had already heard about sword intent, he didn't really know what that meant. "Indeed, sword intent means that a sword seems to have a life of its own," said Jian Shan while nodding. He was very interested in Lin Feng. Lin Feng had only broken through to the third Qianqi layer, but already had sword intent. It was clear to him that by relying on sword intent, Lin Feng could easily compete with cultivators of the fifth Qianqi layer. Chapter 475. The realm of perception. Sword intent means that the sword had a life of its own, thought Lin Feng as if he had just discovered something unfathomable. The sword fusion couldn't be the last step on the path of sword cultivation. He had only broken through to the Qianqi layer. He was far from reaching the peak of any cultivation path. Perhaps sword fusion was only the beginning. Jian Shan was from the Dragon Mountain Empire. He obviously knew more than Lin Feng. Him knowing much more about advanced cultivation than Lin Feng wasn't very surprising. "You say that I already have sword intent. What does that mean?" asked Lin Feng while looking at Jian Shan. At that moment, he sounded modest and humble. He was focusing intently as he asked, "There are many types of sword intent. There are many ways to practice sword cultivation. Everyone understands swords in different ways that gives birth to different types of swords. Extremely strong sword cultivators can use different types of sword intent. The deadly sword that you just used contained a powerful deadly energy. That deadly energy is actually sword intent because it contains the will of the sword and its determination to kill." Jian Shan was sitting with Lin Feng as he explained. He was very interested in Lin Feng. In the Dragon Mountain Empire, there were many geniuses, but Lin Feng already had such a high cultivation level at such a young age. He could already use sword intent. Besides, he didn't even know he was using it. Lin Feng's natural abilities weren't what surprised Jian Shan the most. Actually, Jian Shan had already seen many people as young as Lin Feng who had broken through to the third Qianqi layer or higher. But Lin Feng's power of understanding was awe-inspiring. Many people stayed ignorant their entire lifetime and never grasped sword intent. Some people only understood sword intent after having broken through to the Tianqi layer. Determination to kill. Lin Feng was stupefied. He had heard Yan Yupingshang say something similar in the past, when he was playing the zither and teaching Lin Feng about deadly energy. Besides, the black sword from the celestial book had merged with the deadly energy. Originally, that was what gave birth to the sword intent. "Seems like I can use two types of sword intent," thought Lin Feng. When he was at Mount Sword, he had used his Cosmos Burning Sun skill and had used the power of the sun. He had a breakthrough and understood the three sword attacks at a much deeper level. The Scorching Sword, the Sword of the Rising Sun, and the Sword of the Setting Sun. Could it be that the evil swords entered my body because of my understanding of sword intent? Suddenly thought Lin Feng. The seal on the evil swords had broken and the evil swords entered into his body. The number of people who used to practice there was numerous, but the evil swords had chosen him. Perhaps it was related to the sword intent Jian Shan was talking about. To what kind of dimension does sword intent belong in? asked Lin Feng. He was curious. Jianchen laughed and slightly shook his head. He then said, "You are very curious. Even though you can use sword intent now, it is also the weakest type of sword intent. That is only the first layer of the dimension." "Is sword intent divided into different levels?" asked Lin Feng, stupefied. He was getting more and more curious. Of course, sword intent is divided into 9 levels. Those who have reached the first level of the dimension can slaughter people of the same layer of cultivation. They can also fight against cultivators of higher cultivation layers than themselves. Besides, if you had reached the second level of the sword intent dimension, you would be able to kill people on a higher cultivation level than you who have also reached the first level of intent. Those who have reached the 9th level don't even need a sword, they can kill people with a thought. That level means that a cultivator doesn't need to use a sword anymore, and have become selfless," said Jianchen slowly. Lin Feng had discovered a whole new world of cultivation. Those who had reached the 9th level of the sword intent didn't even need a sword to kill people. How terrifying! Their swords really had a life of their own. It was the first time that Lin Feng heard such things. Before, he was only trying to understand swords to increase his strength. "Then you're probably wondering what happens after your sword intent reaches level 9, said Jianchen while smiling. He then smiled even more and said, "There is the realm of perception. Those who understand the realm of perception can cut apart mountains and rivers. If they get angry, they can destroy an entire city using their sword and create a bloodbath wherever they please. Those who can do that are mainly people of the Zunqi layer, realm of perception." Lin Feng was astonished. So after sword intent, there is the realm of perception? Not only on the path of sword cultivation, every cultivation path will lead to a different type of perception realm. In the case of swords, no matter if it's you or me, we are both extremely far from understanding the realm of perception, said Jianchen slowly. Before understanding the realm of perception, people need to first understand the earth fusion dimension. Not just understand a little, they needed to fully comprehend the earth fusion dimension and then surpass it. That requires a monstrous strength, only that could give birth to the realm of perception. Cultivators strong enough to reach that level are usually of the Zunqi layer. Zunqi layer cultivators were monstrously strong. Jianchen couldn't even dare to imagine how strong they were in comparison. A Zunqi layer cultivator could control a small empire. In the 13 countries of Xueyu, they were overlords. They could kill an army of 10,000 by simply raising their hand. Realm of perception. Zunqi layer cultivators, thought Lin Feng. He then remembered back to the restricted area of the Z government. The extremely strong cultivator there was of the Zunqi layer, so he must have been on that level. Lin Feng knew that he was extremely far from reaching that level. Apart from being able to annihilate an entire city, those cultivators could also transform their blood into a blood spirit and pass it on to their next generations. Provided that the descendants continued to have children, the blood spirit would never be lost and would carry from generation to generation. In Xueyu, if the Duan clan and the Yu clan had a blood spirit, it was because a Zun cultivator had created a blood spirit for them, which was also why they held so much power in Xueyu. It was because a cultivator of the Zunqi layer passed down his blood spirit to his descendants, nothing more. If there had been a cultivator of the Zunqi layer alive in Xueyu, he would be able to reign over it as an overlord. Even the crown prince of Xueyu wouldn't want to offend such a powerful cultivator. I need to understand my own realm of perception, thought Lin Feng. Immediately after, he smiled at Jianchen and said, "Thank you so much for imparting me with your wisdom. Don't mention it, it's nothing. I think that you will come to understand those things in the future even without my help," said Jianchen while smiling, and he then continued, "Come, let's toast to sword intent and to your future. I can't wait to meet you again at the great competition of Xueyu." Jianchen and Lin Feng downed their glasses and smiled at each other. Lin Feng was holding his glass with 2 hands as a sign of respect towards Jianchen. Jianchen was much stronger than all those envoys from Tianfeng, but he didn't have any arrogance. He looked calm and relaxed. He had a calm and prideful aura. Extremely strong and talented cultivators usually weren't extremely arrogant and obnoxious, but most of them were stubborn with an unyielding personality. After drinking with Lin Feng, Jianchen went back to his seat. Lin Feng slowly turned his head and looked at the people from Tianfeng. They were all staring at him with unfriendly glares. Lin Feng felt uneasy being stared at by all of them. "What a bunch of pesky flies," said Lin Feng, which stupefied them. They were all looking at him in an ice-cold way. That guy was too arrogant, he was looking down on all of them. Duan Xinye's beauty is unparalleled. In Tianfeng we rarely see such beautiful women. Besides, we heard that she can play the zither and can dance. We want to hear her play the zither and have her dance. That would be such a great show. Our trip to Shui would be worth it if we could see her," said the third envoy with a smile, yet not a smile on his face. Chapter 476. Humiliating each and every single one. Lin Feng slowly stood up and started walking. However, he didn't go in the envoy's direction, which surprised all the people from Shui. What was Lin Feng doing? Everyone was looking at Lin Feng and wondering what he was doing. But very quickly they understood, because Lin Feng arrived in front of Duan Tianlang. He then stopped and looked down at Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang slightly raised his head and stared at Lin Feng coldly. "Duan Tianlang? Haha," joked Lin Feng. He then raised his foot. Immediately after, a cracking sound spread through the air. Lin Feng smashed Duan Tianlang's glass and redwood table under his foot. Everybody was stunned. Lin Feng was extremely aggressive. With his foot, he was showing just how much respect he had for Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang was fixedly staring at Lin Feng in an ice-cold way. He wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. After Duan Han had been killed by Lin Feng, Duan Tianlang cultivated with all his might. He progressed, but he found out that even though he had made a breakthrough, Lin Feng had greatly surpassed him. He couldn't compete with Lin Feng anymore. In the past, he used to bully Lin Feng. He went to the Yunhai sect and used the Qixia army to destroy it. He was imposing and domineering. He was incredible. Back then, Duan Tianlang used to think that Lin Feng was a nobody, a tiny little insect. Even though he had a high level of talent, Duan Tianlang still despised him. Duan Tianlang had exterminated the Yunhai sect and bullied Lin Feng. After that, in MOU, Duan Tianlang plotted against Lin Feng and made false charges against him. He had also collaborated with the enemy, and had them kidnap the princess, and hundreds of thousands of troops had died because of him. Then he blamed Lu Tsonglan for it and had him sentenced to death. Back then, Duan Tianlang was still toying with Lin Feng. However, at that moment, Lin Feng was standing in front of Duan Tianlang, and had crushed his table along with Duan Tianlang's food and drink. Perhaps only now did Duan Tianlang realize that Lin Feng wasn't the same person he could bully. At that moment, Lin Feng was already standing in front of him in a majestic and domineering way. He didn't need to think about the consequences anymore. He could just step all over Duan Tianlang's dignity, just like he did to the table. Duan Tianlang? When Duan Tianlang thought about Lin Feng's previous words, he realized that Lin Feng had announced that he didn't fear him anymore. There wasn't a difference in status between them. Lin Feng was Yu Menghe's son. He had the blood spirit of the Yu clan and was a dual spirit holder. Duan Tianlang also had a blood spirit, but compared to others his wasn't powerful enough. Besides, his social status wasn't any higher than that of Lin Feng's. On top of that, Duan Wuya was on Lin Feng's side, and Duan Tianlang had past enmities with Duan Wuya after collaborating with MOU. Everybody was calmly and silently watching the scene. This was between Lin Feng and Duan Tianlang. Even though some people hated Lin Feng, they didn't dare say a word. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of their backing anymore. Maybe if they said the wrong thing and angered Lin Feng, he would just kill them. "What do you want?" asked Duan Tianlang, finally opening his mouth and breaking the oppressive silence. However, the atmosphere was still cold and oppressive as everyone watched on. "What do I want?" said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. "Duan Tianlang, you perfectly know how much I hate you. Either you live or I live. I refuse to share the same sky as you. But today, the second prince made great efforts to organize this banquet. If I didn't come and make trouble for you, it's not because I don't dare, it's only for the sake of the second prince. But you are ridiculous. I was allowing you to keep your life, yet you provoked me. You revealed your evil intentions and tried to get the princess involved. Duan Tianlang, do you think that you are smart? Because I don't. I think that you're as stupid as a pig." Lin Feng's words were the same as if he had slapped Duan Tianlang directly across the face. Duan Tianlang's petty tricks made him look like a stupid pig. Duan Tianlang's face turned purple. His heart felt painful, but he didn't refute Lin Feng's words. In the world of cultivation, the strong could speak and the weak would listen. In the past, he had a higher social status than Lin Feng and was also stronger, therefore he could humiliate him. Now Lin Feng had a higher social status than him and was also stronger. Therefore, Lin Feng could stand there and openly insult him. Duan Tianlang, in my eyes you are a dead man walking, your fate is sealed. It's more ridiculous to me that you would dare to provoke me, said Lin Feng in a cold tone. Today, after the banquet, I will be coming for you. When Lin Feng finished talking, he turned around and left, leaving Duan Tianlang stupefied. Lin Feng announced that he was going to come for him. Lin Feng had also said that after the banquet, he would come for him. Was he planning to openly kill him? Duan Tianlang suddenly felt terrified. Lin Feng wanted to kill him and he wasn't afraid of announcing it. It was clear to Duan Tianlang how much enmity they shared. He had destroyed Lin Feng's sect and repeatedly attacked him. If Lin Feng said he refused to share the same sky as Duan Tianlang, it didn't mean that Lin Feng would die. Instead, it meant the death of Duan Tianlang. Only one of them could remain alive under the shared sky. When Duan Tianlang thought about it, he suddenly felt like he was at his wit's end. He had thought about the millions of plots he would use to kill Lin Feng, but now he was realizing that Lin Feng could kill him at any moment. Could he escape? Trying to secretly escape from the banquet wouldn't work. If Duan Tianlang escaped, he would be able to live on, but would Lin Feng let him go so easily? He would find him sooner or later. Duan Tianlang's mind was spinning. He was suddenly regretting that he took action. He regretted that he created enmity between himself and Lin Feng. He was regretting the fact that he influenced people to humiliate the princess. However, Lin Feng didn't go straight to the envoys. He went straight to Duan Tianlang, who incited them. Lin Feng didn't know what Duan Tianlang was thinking at that moment and he didn't care. Now, he was facing the envoys from Tianfeng, who considered themselves as extraordinary. He walked to the sixth envoy and stopped in front of him. He had already killed the seventh envoy, so the weakest of the 7 envoys was now the 6th. I, Lin Feng, am not one of the 8 high officials. I am not famous across the world. I can't compete with you, the envoys from Tianfeng. You are all incredibly strong and amazing. However, you humiliated the princess, so I, Lin Feng, must fight. Lin Feng was standing in front of the 6th envoy and speaking slowly. He then continued, I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge you to a battle to the death. Only when one of us dies will the battle come to an end. Lin Feng was making himself seem like a nobody and challenging the 6th envoy to battle. That move stupefied everyone. They were all staring at Lin Feng. That guy. The 6th envoy was also looking at Lin Feng but remained silent. He was irresolute. He was stronger than the 7th envoy but only by a little. Lin Feng was able to kill the 7th envoy in one attack, so he wouldn't fare any better against him. If he fought, he would probably die. 6th envoy, Your Excellency, do you accept my challenge or not? Asked Lin Feng when he saw that the 6th envoy remaining silent. Lin Feng, however, was smiling coldly. The 6th envoy pulled a long face and immediately replied, I am not interested. When Lin Feng heard the 6th envoy's answer, he laughed in an evil way and said something in a low voice, yet it was distinct enough for everybody to hear. The 7th envoy was a piece of trash and the 6th envoy is a coward. 2 of the 7 envoys have already shown their true colors. When the people from Tianfeng heard Lin Feng, they all pulled a long face and glared at Lin Feng. But Lin Feng didn't need them to glare at him. He immediately walked to the next one, the 5th envoy. 5th envoy, said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge the 5th envoy, Your Excellency, to a battle to the death. Lin Feng's voice was the same. He sounded humble when challenging the envoy to battle. Lin Feng had challenged the 6th envoy but he had refused, so he immediately challenged the 5th envoy. All the people from Tianfeng were pulling long faces. Lin Feng wanted to humiliate each and every single one of them. He wanted to destroy the reputation of the 7 envoys from Tianfeng. If the 5th refused, would Lin Feng challenge the 4th? Chapter 477. The confrontation. The 5th envoy was stupefied. He began to stare fixedly at Lin Feng. It was the second time that Lin Feng was challenging him to a battle to the death. Would he fight? Or not? The fifth envoy was shaking. He had refused to fight the first time and had already lost a great deal of face. Lin Feng was challenging him again. Could he refuse a second time? Especially now that the sixth envoy refused. If he refused again, that would be a huge blow not only to his reputation but also to the other envoys and their reputation. They would all be considered as cowards and weaklings, but the most important detail was that Lin Feng had only broken through to the third Qianqi layer. If someone of a higher cultivation had challenged them and they refused, it would be very normal, but Lin Feng's cultivation level was lower than theirs. He was challenging them and they were refusing, so when the rumor spread, they would seem like cowards and weaklings. If you're scared to fight, just say so, said Lin Feng when he saw that the fifth envoy wasn't replying. It didn't matter either way to him. You must have a death wish, said the fifth envoy while looking at the fourth envoy to his side. Lin Feng was challenging them one after the other, so his opponents were also getting stronger as he continued. They thought that Lin Feng was definitely going to die if he continued his challenges. I refuse, said the fifth envoy finally, which made Lin Feng smile radiantly. You refused to fight, so stop talking shit. You were so puffed up with pride a moment ago, but now you're running away like a coward. Anyway, you're just another example of the trash amongst the seventh envoys. Lin Feng profoundly despised them after their actions. Then he continued and walked down the line to the fourth envoy. I, Lin Feng, can see that today each and every single one of the seventh envoys enjoys talking about their dignity and grandeur, as if the seven envoys are all incredibly amazing, but in the end it's filled with weaklings and cowards. I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge you, the fourth envoy, to a battle to the death, said Lin Feng. This was his third challenge. Everybody remained silent. There was only Lin Feng's voice resonating through the air. Lin Feng was challenging the fourth envoy this time. Would he fight or would he back down? If the fourth envoy didn't fight, only the second and third envoy would remain. Everybody was staring at the fourth envoy. It seems like he's going to fight this time. Many people's eyes were excited. Lin Feng was already challenging the fourth envoy. There was no reason for him to refuse. He won't fight, said a clear voice at that moment, but the fourth envoy wasn't the one who spoke. It was Prince Fengchan. Fengchan had taken the initiative to prevent the fourth envoy from accepting the challenge. When the fourth envoy heard Fengchan's words, he immediately refused. Lin Feng didn't say anything. He didn't need to say anything. His actions spoke louder than words. The fourth envoy had just refused. He was humiliating himself and the seven envoys. None of the envoys dared to fight. Lin Feng then calmly walked to the third envoy. He looked as calm and serene as before. He then said coldly, I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge you to battle to the death. Wee. Everybody was absolutely astonished, and they all involuntarily sucked in a deep breath. Lin Feng was surprisingly challenging the third envoy from Tianfeng. How aggressive and domineering. The third envoy was ranked third, but Lin Feng wasn't scared at all. He was challenging him. All the people from Tianfeng were stupefied. Lin Feng was being way too aggressive. He was going to get himself killed. The third envoy had already broken through to the fifth Qianqi layer. They didn't believe that Lin Feng, who was of the third Qianqi layer, could fight against somebody whose level was higher by 2 layers. Lin Feng was courting death. The third envoy remained silent and stood up. He then looked at Lin Feng coldly and said, I accept your challenge. When he finished talking, he released a deadly energy which rushed towards Lin Feng. After all those cowards, there's finally someone who accepts, said Lin Feng while smiling indifferently. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered and he appeared on the cultivation field outside of the pavilion, basking in the moonlight as his clothes fluttered in the cold wind. The third envoy looked over, then charged towards the cultivation field, facing Lin Feng. They were both staring at each other. The wind was howling through the air and both fighters' clothes were fluttering. The scariest part was that wind seemed to contain sword energy. The third envoy, just like Lin Feng, used swords. I will tell you something, if they refuse to fight against you, it's not because they are weak or cowards, it's because they wanted you to die spectacularly under my sword, said the third envoy. He had a sword on his back, which he immediately unsheathed. It released a cold energy and then started dancing on the wind. His sword was dazzling, it looked like it was dancing with the wind, it was magnificent. However, when Lin Feng saw that magnificent sword, he smiled in an evil way. Wind. His silhouette flickered and he moved like the wind. His speed was miraculous. It was as if he was a fierce gale in the atmosphere. There was no whistling sound, no sound at all, nothing. Lin Feng's body seemed to be weightless. He looked like he was drifting on the wind, just like a falling leaf, except his speed was incredible. In a flash, he arrived in front of the third envoy. Lin Feng slightly rose his hand and a single finger pierced towards the third envoy. A whistling sword energy emerged from his finger, and it diffused a terrifying sword energy. The sword chi was extremely sharp. Huh! The third envoy was stupefied. Lin Feng's speed was out of this world. In a flash, he had immediately appeared in front of him. That finger was filled with a sharp and powerful sword energy. Even though it wasn't monstrously powerful, if it reached the third envoy's chest, it was more than enough to kill him. Retreat. The third envoy immediately moved back. His sword wasn't dancing anymore, it had stopped in midair. This is a saint. A subtle sound spread in the air. Lin Feng's finger reached the third envoy and pierced his clothes and left a bloody mark across his chest. He was only struck by the fingertip from the finger attack and it almost killed him. The third envoy moved his sword back. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. How dangerous! He had been careless for less than a second and had been injured by Lin Feng. Swords aren't used to create spectacles, joked Lin Feng, which stupefied the third envoy. He was surprisingly humiliating his ability to use a sword, saying that it wasn't used to create a performance. I will show you the depths of my sword skills, said the third envoy. His sword created a silver flash in the air. Star sword, shouted the third envoy in a deep voice. Multiple lights appeared. They looked like stars in the night. That attack looked magnificent. Lin Feng released a terrifying deadly energy, then bombarded the atmosphere with it. The ground and the air started to shake under the pressure. The deadly energy was crashing through the air. It was terrifying. Sword intent. That deadly sword energy was filled with sword intent. The crowd was watching the battle. The third envoy was using his star sword, which transformed into a constellation of stars. It was dazzling and resplendent. However, Lin Feng's attack was the total opposite. There was only a terrifying deadly energy. Lin Feng's cultivation wasn't as high as that of the third envoy, but his deadly energy made his chi and force much more powerful. Deadly chi was rolling all around him and merging with his deadly force. Boom! The third envoy's sword arrived in front of Lin Feng, but all the stars in the third envoy's attack started to explode and were devoured by the deadly energy. Lin Feng took a step forward and another explosion spread through the air. His black deadly energy swallowed the stars until only blackness remained. Then, Lin Feng's deadly energy formed into a black sword. Lin Feng's attacks were becoming more and more terrifying. Infinite constellation, shouted the third envoy. His sword streaked across the sky. What seemed like a rain of silver asteroids started to fall from the sky. Boom! Lin Feng dashed forward. His black energy was crashing against the silver lights, annihilating everything in his path. Lacerate! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. His black sword collided with the asteroids of the third envoy's attack as a storm of deadly energy invaded the atmosphere. 9-star annihilation! Shouted the third envoy. 9 stars formed and shot forward in rapid succession. It was dazzling. The lights illuminated everything. They seemed like they held the destructive power of a supernova. Lacerate! In Feng's black sword shone again. A rumbling sound spread through the air and a strong wind filled with deadly energy rushed forward. The third envoy continued to close in on Lin Feng with each attack. He had to kill Lin Feng, but the force of his 9-star annihilation was growing weaker and weaker. However, at that moment, in the middle of the black deadly energy, Lin Feng slowly raised his left hand, revealing a black lotus. It looked calm and tranquil. That black lotus followed Lin Feng's movements and moved towards the third envoy. The monstrous deadly energy created a storm as the lotus drifted through the air. Chapter 478. Terrified. Lin Feng's black lotus contained a monstrous deadly energy. Nothing could remain in that deadly energy storm. It was annihilating everything. The 9 stars got swallowed by the black lotus and there was no light to be seen. The third envoy was astonished. He suddenly looked terrified. That black lotus was terrifying. It could swallow and destroy anything. Lin Feng would condense the majority of his pure sun qi and grim fire to make the black lotus, but after having been to the desert on the other side of the world, he absorbed a lot of crystals from the fire wolf's crystals, making his sun qi stronger. When condensing it with his grim fire, his black lotus had become even more terrifying. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't need to use much of his pure qi reserves anymore. He still had qi left, but it was already more than enough to defeat the third envoy. Retreat! The third envoy didn't feel like fighting anymore. His magnificent 9-star annihilation had been destroyed by Lin Feng's black lotus, so he had no choice but to dodge. But even though his 9-star annihilation had been destroyed, its force was still pressing forwards with the momentum of his attack, making it difficult for him to retreat. Position of the stars change! Shouted the third envoy furiously. His sword started diffusing a strange starlight. His speed was incredible, but he wasn't using his sword to attack. Instead, he was using it to dodge and retreat. But could he escape? Lin Feng smiled coldly. Wind! In a flash, he drifted on the wind and rushed forwards. The stars were still floating in the air, but Lin Feng had already arrived. His deadly energy enveloped the third envoy's body, so the third envoy hastily brandished his sword. However, it wasn't enough to block the deadly energy. In a flash, his sword was swallowed and it disappeared into the blackness. Lin Feng's eyes grew dark. The third envoy lowered his head and Lin Feng's black lotus was already in front of him. It arrived at his chest. He was terrified and desperate. A subtle sound emerged and the third envoy was astonished when he looked at his chest. Lin Feng's black lotus had just penetrated directly into his chest. The third envoy raised his head and looked to Lin Feng. He was desperate. He could only see Lin Feng's ice-cold black eyes. Was he going to die? When the third envoy thought about dying, he felt even more hopeless and started shaking. Immediately after, he saw Lin Feng moving back. The distance between them was growing larger. Lin Feng's black deadly energy had already enveloped his entire body and black flames were consuming his insides. Eh! A shriek filled the air as the black flames engulfed the third envoy, and in a flash, the third envoy disappeared from existence. The crowd all had their eyes fixed on this scene. The people from Shui had seen that black lotus before, but it was much more powerful than the last time they witnessed it. The people from Tianfeng were all stunned. That deadly black lotus was unstoppable, and immediately burned the third envoy to death. Lin Feng was too terrifying. Lin Feng turned around, glanced at the people from Tianfeng, and then immediately started to slowly walk towards them. Step, step, step. The sound of Lin Feng's footsteps thundered through the silence. Everybody was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Was he going to continue with his challenges? Lin Feng walked towards the second envoy and stopped. Everybody was dumbstruck. Lin Feng was going to challenge the second envoy? He was ranked second strongest amongst the envoys from Tianfeng. So far, 5 weaklings and cowards. The only envoy left is you, said Lin Feng indifferently, which made people's hearts race faster. Lin Feng really wanted to challenge the second envoy to a battle to the death. He was incredible, his actions were extremely aggressive. He had challenged every single envoy from the 7th to the 2nd. He had either humiliated them or immediately killed them. He hadn't skipped a single one. Lin Feng was challenging 6 people one after the other. The second envoy was fixedly staring at Lin Feng with a cold glare. He then slowly stood up. Alright, that's enough. That's too many battles for today. If you continue fighting, it will damage the existing friendship between Shui Yu and Tianfeng, said Ruolan Shan, which stupefied everybody. He was being a hypocrite. Lin Feng had already fought and killed people from Tianfeng, but he was only stepping in at that moment. After all, the second envoy and Lin Feng were both extremely strong and talented. If one of them died, it would be a shame. Ruolan Shan didn't want them to fight to the death, so he had to stop them. Lin Feng, that's enough, please go back to your seat, said Ruolan Shan while slightly nodding. Lin Feng glanced at the second envoy coldly. He didn't insist and said something in return. As expected, the 7 envoys are as amazing as I thought, joked Lin Feng, making those people from Tianfeng pull a long face. Lin Feng had humiliated them over and over again. A moment before, if they were able to kill Lin Feng, they could have regained some of their prestige and reputation. Therefore, when Feng Chun prevented the fourth envoy from fighting, his purpose was to have the stronger envoys fight against Lin Feng. He had hoped that the third envoy would be enough to kill him. Unfortunately, the third envoy was unable to kill Lin Feng. Instead, Lin Feng had killed him. At that moment, Lin Feng had gone back to his seat and 2 people from Tianfeng were dead while the rest of them would be mocked as cowards and weaklings because they didn't fight. Chapter 479. Pressure. Duan Tianlang's eyes were cautious. He turned around, condensed some pure qi as he slowed down to a stop as he cautiously observed his surroundings, and then moved higher into the sky. But he still had the impression that somebody was watching him. It felt like he was being stalked by a ferocious beast. He felt extremely uncomfortable. He frowned and continued to fly away at full speed. After a short time, he abruptly turned around. He spotted a fiery red silhouette which disappeared in a flash. "I have spotted you already, come out," said Duan Tianlang. Even though he was a red silhouette, he didn't really know if he had spotted his pursuer. A silhouette then slowly appeared from the darkness of the night and rose into the air. Duan Tianlang was stupefied and blankly stared at that red silhouette. No wonder that he had had the feeling a ferocious beast was stalking him. It really was a ferocious beast. Besides, it looked extremely aggressive and brutal. It was covered with bright red flames and had spikes covering its body. It was flying in the air with 2 gigantic red wings. That ferocious beast looked terrifying. It looked sanguinary and brutal. A single glance at that beast was enough to frighten a normal person to death. "It's a winged tiger," thought Duan Tianlang. He read about that beast in ancient books. That beast looked like a winged tiger. An ancient ferocious beast. Lin Feng. Duan Tianlang had come to a realization. When he saw that winged tiger, he obviously guessed that Lin Feng had sent it. Duan Tianlang had learnt that Lin Feng had a winged tiger when he had killed the people from the Wanshou sect. Lin Feng had surprisingly sent his winged tiger to chase him. Duan Tianlang looked behind the winged tiger, but saw nothing. There was nobody else. Besides, Lin Feng had definitely left with the princess a moment before. That couldn't have been faked. Lin Feng purposely sent the winged tiger to follow him. It seemed like Lin Feng was determined to kill Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang was a bit surprised. He then abruptly started moving as he flew away at his fastest speed. WSSSSSS. A whistling sound suddenly spread through the air. Immediately after, Duan Tianlang heard the winged tiger emit a roar. He was stupefied. He turned around and his heart started to race. Lin Feng had caught up with him. Duan Tianlang stopped and said, What do you want?" Lin Feng said nothing. He just stared at him coldly. From Lin Feng's deep and mysterious expression, Duan Tianlang had no idea what he was thinking. The wind was gently blowing across their bodies. Duan Tianlang felt a slight chill run down his spine. That wind was ice cold and his heart felt like it was about to stop. Lin Feng's silence was extremely oppressive. Lin Feng wasn't attacking and Duan Tianlang didn't know what Lin Feng was going to do. He was just staring at him, nothing more. Finally, Duan Tianlang couldn't bear the pressure anymore, groaned coldly and started to leave. After he started to fly away, there was no sound at all behind him and he could no longer feel Lin Feng's gaze. Duan Tianlang was extremely fast. After having flown across a huge distance, he stopped again and looked behind him. He was astonished by what he saw. Lin Feng and the winged tiger were right behind him. At that moment, Lin Feng sat atop his winged tiger. He was calmly gazing into the distance, but wasn't even looking at Duan Tianlang, which was probably why Duan Tianlang couldn't feel Lin Feng's gaze. What a terrifying speed! The winged tiger had been following him silently. There hadn't been a single sound, so Duan Tianlang hadn't even sensed that they were still behind him. That winged tiger was extremely fast and had no difficulty following behind him. Of course, ferocious beasts with wings were much faster than cultivators who had to use pure qi to fly. Besides, the winged tiger was an ancient ferocious beast with gigantic wings, which was why it was extremely quick when flying through the air. "I can't escape?" thought Duan Tianlang. The winged tiger was following closely behind him. He couldn't escape if he tried. Besides, Lin Feng was extremely strong. Would the incredible and majestic Duan Tianlang die by Lin Feng's hands? Would he die in the hands of someone who used to be a nobody to him? What do you want to do? Asked Duan Tianlang. Lin Feng wasn't attacking him and was only staring into the distance. The pressure in Duan Tianlang's heart was unbearable. Lin Feng remained silent as before. The silence was terrifying. He only turned to look at him. Duan Tianlang was feeling less and less comfortable, and grew more and more scared. The ancient ferocious beast and Lin Feng were both staring at him, which created a suffocating pressure. I need to go. Duan Tianlang flew away at full speed. His pure qi was whistling through the air as he flew. His speed was incredible. Duan Tianlang only wanted to escape from Lin Feng and that damned beast. Under them, the landscape was changing. They had eventually left the imperial palace and continued flying until they were flying over the imperial city. Duan Tianlang wasn't looking at anything. He was just running away with all his power. Finally, after what felt like a long time for Duan Tianlang, he moved towards the top of a large building. They had arrived at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. The wind was still blowing and Duan Tianlang rushed towards a tower. He then stopped once he reached the top of the tower. That tower was a holy place for the students of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. It was a cultivation tower. Many people, when they saw the person who was flying through the air, were excited. It was their principal Duan Tianlang. Except it looked like their principal was trying to escape from something. A short moment after, two silhouettes appeared in the sky. Lin Feng's voice was ice cold, and the person started to shake. Qiongqi, go deal with him, said Lin Feng. The winged tiger's silhouette flickered. Its pure qi was released, and the winged tiger roared intensely. It rushed through the air and attacked. Its two large eyes were filled with an ominous glint. It was beating its wings extremely quickly as it dashed through the air. The person who had just proposed to kill Lin Feng was at the second Xian Qi layer, and the winged tiger was a level 2 Xian beast. The winged tiger could fly faster than a cultivator, much faster. That person had only just condensed some pure qi in his hand when he was forced to punch towards the incoming winged tiger, but the winged tiger only swiped with its sharp claws, which landed directly on that person's chest. Even though they had tried to dodge, a deep wound appeared on the person's chest, and it was pouring with blood. It was a gruesome wound. Boom! A monumental amount of qi appeared in the atmosphere. There were many people who were condensing pure qi, causing the energy to become extremely dense. The teachers from the holy courtyard of Shuiyu were attacking the winged tiger at the same time. Whoever dares attack is my enemy, and I always kill my enemies, said Lin Feng indifferently, which made the teachers immediately stop moving. Their pure qi grew weaker and eventually dispersed. Roar! The winged tiger roared violently. The person who had just been attacked by the winged tiger had a deep wound on their chest and looked deathly pale. But when the ancient ferocious beast saw blood, it would become even more excited. So the winged tiger continued its attacks. It continued beating its wings and moved towards the person like an illusion. The students suddenly realized that the individual's head had suddenly disappeared. There was only a neck which was spraying blood into the air. Many people let out terrified shrieks. They were panicking. How cruel! The ancient ferocious beast was horrifying. It had immediately beheaded the teacher, and was now gnashing the head between its teeth. Everyone's hearts were pounding brutally. What surprised them the most was that none of the teachers dared to stop the beast. Because Lin Feng spoke out, they hadn't interfered. They could only watch their colleague get killed by Lin Feng's winged tiger. What an absolute humiliation! Before, they used to think that the holy courtyard of Shuiyu was incredible. However, at that moment that splendor was being destroyed. The teacher had just been killed by a beast in front of his colleagues, and nobody had dared to move. How humiliating! It was clear everyone there that strength was all that mattered. Lin Feng was unyielding and was able to come to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu and kill people as he wished. He could threaten Duan Tianlang, who was a member of the Duan clan, and he could kill the teachers. Nobody would try to stop him. It invaded the entire atmosphere, which gradually became darker as the purple spirit appeared to block all of the light from the starry sky. Boom! The sound of a collision emerged in the air. Lin Feng used the force of their attack to propel his body backwards, but they immediately gave chase. Suddenly, the purple lake fell from the sky and submerged them along with Lin Feng. It surrounded them and they were no longer able to see Lin Feng. If they hastily retreated, it would give Lin Feng an opportunity to attack them out of formation. "How did we end up being surrounded?" asked one of them. They all glanced at the others. There were 18 of them and all of them had been trapped by the purple spirit. "Let's attack together," said one of them. That purple spirit was a threat to them. It had trapped them inside and seemed to be restraining their movements. Suddenly, they no longer had any sense of direction or time. It looked like they were submerged inside a purple world. When they tried to think clearly, they found out that they couldn't see any of their colleagues anymore. They seemed to be entirely alone. One of them noticed that he was trapped inside. He was imprisoned. 9 Palace Dragon Formation. Everybody frowned. They, of course, recognized that palace. It was an illusion, but it wasn't used to kill people. It was used to imprison people. Lin Feng was standing outside of the illusion and watching as a cold light flashed through his eyes. He took a step and immediately appeared in front of one of them inside the illusion, which stupefied the man. At that moment, he was directly opposite Lin Feng. "Tell me who you people are," said Lin Feng coldly. The man's eyes twinkled, but he remained silent. "If you don't want to talk, then die," said Lin Feng, moving like the wind towards the man. In a flash, he appeared in front of his opponent and attacked with his deadly sword. But the man brandished his dazzling blade in return. However, the assassin was alone. Could he stop Lin Feng's sword? His blade was absorbed into Lin Feng's deadly energy, which terrified him. Immediately after, his body was split into 2 by Lin Feng's sword. Lin Feng didn't even turn to look at him. He took another step and arrived in another purple room. There was a female assassin in that room who was shocked and looked pale. "Who sent you to kill me?" asked Lin Feng again. She stared at Lin Feng and replied in an ice-cold tone. "Lin Feng, I never would have believed that you'd be able to create the 9 Palace Dragon Formation. You're lucky, but that won't save you next time. Even if there's a next time, you won't be alive to see it," said Lin Feng while running forwards and attacking with his deadly sword. In a flash, she was dead as well. Lin Feng continued killing those people inside the illusion. All those cultivators of the Xianqi layer were dying one by one inside Lin Feng's illusion. After killing those 18 people, the illusion disappeared, and Lin Feng was standing in the lonely night sky. He looked like a death god, but he didn't seem proud or arrogant. He already had an extremely high social status. He was Yu Menghe's son and part of Duan Wuye's faction. Ruolan Shan had also showed a liking to him, but some foolish people still dared to try and assassinate him. Besides, the 18 were all trained in a particular formation, so those people probably belonged to a very influential group. The scariest part was that none of the 18 had revealed the name of whom they worked, even when threatened with death. That type of enemy was extremely terrifying, and that group must be extremely powerful. They knew that those troops were probably going to kill them, but what could they do? They were surrounded by a powerful army and were clearly outmatched. They had no choice. In the end, a huge group of people gathered in the middle of the valley. When they looked up to the cliffs of the valley, they could see the Qi Xie troops looking down on them. They all looked cold and detached and were releasing some deadly qi as they all reached for their bows. Many people's hearts were pounding violently. This scene was similar to what happened in the past. Back then, Duan Tianlang had come to the Yunhai sect with the other sects and had slaughtered the Yunhai sect. History was repeating itself. However, in the valley, there weren't any people from the Yunhai sect. The scene looked the same, but the positions had been reversed. Only those who annihilated the Yunhai sect were forced into the valley. Nobody had ever thought that such a thing would happen. The atmosphere was deathly silent and oppressive. In the distance, a whistling sound spread through the air. Very quickly, everyone noticed 2 silhouettes. It was Lin Feng riding his winged tiger. His pure white clothes were fluttering in the wind as he looked down towards the valley. That beast was bright red like fire and had 2 gigantic wings. Everyone was terrified of the vicious beast. Everybody looked up at the silhouettes in the sky. However, what frightened people more than the winged tiger was when they recognized the person riding it. Lin Feng had come back. He had come to avenge the Yunhai sect. A few years before, he was a low-level disciple of the Yunhai sect. He had just broken through to the Lingqi layer. Now he was like a blazing star in the sky. He had become the Marquis of Yangzhou City, the Qixia Marquis, and had a powerful army under his control. He was also riding a terrifying Xian-level beast, and had now returned to the Yunhai sect with a tremendous power. If the Yunhai sect still existed, Lin Feng's return would have been glorious. However, the Yunhai sect had been exterminated and all Lin Feng wanted to do was massacre those responsible. Lin Feng had returned for revenge. Lin Feng didn't continue looking down at those people. Instead, he looked towards the mountain chain. He could see all the places he remembered from the past, but only coldness filled his eyes. A debt of blood had to be paid with blood. He slowly turned his head and looked at the valley, the stormy gorge. There was an arena in the center, the life and death arena. Lin Feng could remember his time at the stormy gorge and the life and death arena. At that moment he could clearly remember all those people who had long since died. He could remember how Lu Fei had chased him. He could remember Protector Kong who protected him along with Protector Bai's kind smile. Lin Feng looked down at the crowd in the stormy gorge. He despised all of them. Those people were like vermin in Lin Feng's eyes. He looked at them the same way they looked at the Yunhai sect in the past. Lin Feng slowly rose his hand and in a flash, countless whistling sounds spread through the air which was immediately invaded by a deadly qi. Thousands and thousands of arrows were shot into the air, aiming directly for the people inside the valley. Everyone inside the valley was panicking. They were shaking as they saw the cloud of arrows falling from the sky. They all looked terrified. In that heartless world, people would show no mercy to their enemies. Blood was the only way to repay blood. Lin Feng only raised his hand into the air and thousands upon thousands of arrows were unleashed into the air. Said a voice coming from inside the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Everybody was astonished, including Lin Feng. Was Duan Tianlang challenging Lin Feng to a battle to the death? Middle troops, come inside with me. Left troops obstruct all the exits and prevent anyone from leaving. Right troops, pay attention to the air, said Lin Feng indifferently. The winged tiger also went into the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. At the same time the middle troops followed him, but they were on the ground while Lin Feng was in the sky. The left and right troops then obeyed Lin Feng's order, preventing anyone from escaping by land or air. Nobody was permitted to leave. Lin Feng completely sealed the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Chapter 488. The mysterious group Lin Feng appeared in the air above the cultivation tower of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. On the ground, the members of the courtyard raised their heads to look at him and his winged tiger. In such a short period of time, Lin Feng had appeared above their tower again. Besides, this time he had brought thousands of soldiers with him. He wanted to exterminate the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. At the foot of the cultivation tower there were a group of people who slowly rose into the air waiting. Duan Tianlang was standing in the middle of that group. He looked majestic and had regained his commanding presence. Apart from Duan Tianlang there were a few people. They were not from the holy courtyard, but they were allied with Duan Tianlang at that moment. The qi from that group was extremely powerful. They were all at the Xianqi layer. This time, the holy courtyard of Shueyu had appeared in full strength. "It seems like you've been preparing for this battle," said Lin Feng while giving a faint scowl. Duan Tianlang looked like he was waiting for him. "I've been waiting for a while," said Duan Tianlang. His eyes were as cold as ice. This time he didn't look scared at all. Lin Feng's eyes also grew cold. He quickly glanced at those people and asked himself why Duan Tianlang was acting so confident. Lin Feng continued to look at those people, but he really couldn't notice anything strange. They looked extremely ordinary, and precisely because of that, this situation seemed unusually dangerous. But it was clear to Lin Feng that those people wouldn't be that ordinary. Otherwise, why would they be standing with Duan Tianlang? "Those 18 cultivators of the Xianqi lair from the other night, did you send them?" asked Lin Feng while looking at those people. In total, there were 5 people standing by Duan Tianlang's side. It seemed like they were protecting him. Those 5 people looked at Lin Feng perplexed. Then one of them asked, "Did you kill them?" That sentence was simple, but in a way he was admitting that those people were sent by them. "I did," said Lin Feng indifferently while nodding. Their eyes grew sharp, but they didn't say anything. They were just glaring at Lin Feng. "Among you and Duan Tianlang, who is the boss and who is the servant?" asked Lin Feng. What he meant was between Duan Tianlang and those 5 people who had a higher status. Those 5 people were probably stronger than those 18 cultivators of the Xianqi lair he fought last time. Besides, Duan Tianlang looked extremely confident with them here. It seemed like they had the strength to make Duan Tianlang feel at ease. Lin Feng believed that these people's social status must be very high. The loss of those 18 cultivators of the Xianqi lair seemed like nothing to them. The fact that they were dead didn't seem to affect those 5 people greatly. There was only a slight change in their expressions. 18 cultivators of the Xianqi lair were a powerful force. If they had been part of an influential group in Shueyu, they could have accomplished great things. But those people didn't care about the 18 cultivators of the Xianqi lair. What did that mean? What was their social status? "There is no use in giving answers to the dead," said one of those people in an indifferent tone, which made Duan Tianlang smile. He looked at Lin Feng while seeming fearless and mockingly said, "Lin Feng, the other night, you had an opportunity to kill me but you didn't. I guarantee you that it was the biggest mistake you made in your entire life. You missed your chance that night and today you will die because of it. It seems like these people are above you. You are just their lackey, a servant, a worthless dog," said Lin Feng while ignoring Duan Tianlang. He then continued in a low voice, "I had never thought that the majestic Duan Tianlang, who has the status of a noble, would be someone else's servant. I am surprised. I had thought that, even though Duan Tianlang was a bit weak, he was still a noble. And a noble ended up being a mere lackey, some other people's little dog." Lin Feng's words astonished many members of the holy courtyard of Shueyu. He was saying that the founder of the holy courtyard of Shueyu was someone else's lackey. They had never thought about that before. Duan Tianlang was a noble and his status was majestic. How could he be someone's lackey? But in fact, Duan Tianlang was clearly obeying these 5 people. "I don't really want to know that much, I'm just curious. If Duan Tianlang is someone's servant, it means that those at the top must be more important than the members of the imperial clan. Besides, the great competition is approaching and the imperial clan would strive to keep me alive. They want me to represent them in the great competition, so what role are you guys planning?" asked Lin Feng. He looked perplexed but was slightly surprised. Duan Tianlang was a noble with the blood of the imperial clan, but he seemed to worship those 5 people. Lin Feng didn't believe that these people were from a force outside of the imperial city. They had to have a very high social status in the imperial city. That was the only explanation. But the second prince Duan Wuxia favored Lin Feng, and everybody was aware that he protected Lin Feng. Besides, after the banquet the other night, everyone was certain that he was going to be chosen for the great competition of Shueyu. The imperial clan would benefit greatly from his participation, and had no reason to want Lin Feng dead. Chapter 489. The Snow Dragon Robe. The battle started. People were growing hysterical as a terrifying chi dispersed in the atmosphere. 5 battles were taking place in the sky. Those 5 people had justifications for being arrogant. They had all broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer, especially the one who spoke for them. He was at the peak of the 5th Xianqi layer, only one step away from breaking through to the 6th Xianqi layer. His strength was terrifying. However, 4 women were surprisingly able to suppress him, which meant that the other women could take care of the others. 2 formations were enough to completely suppress them. Duan Tianlang was astonished when he saw that, and the crowd was shocked as well. Those women had terrifying battle powers when working together. Their battle formation was perfect. They could carry out perfect attacks when fighting together, and their power was explosive. Those 5 cultivators of the 5th Xianqi layer were completely under control. Yu Menghe hadn't wasted her time during the last 18 years. She had raised those women and turned them into a powerful fighting force. Now she had given those women to Lin Feng. With his natural abilities, it was like giving a tiger wings. I wonder where those women come from. With those battle formations and their spells, their fighting ability is terrifying, thought many people when they saw those women. They were all so young, all of them were around 20 years old. The crowd knew that those women weren't weak, but the most important fact was that they had devoted their entire lives to cultivation, and rarely had contact with the outside world, which meant that their hearts weren't polluted by the world. They only followed their master for their entire lives and had made great progress in their cultivation. Besides, there were 2 sorts of cultivators who could increase their cultivation extremely quickly. People who belonged to the first category had pure hearts which were unpolluted by the mundane world. Apart from practicing cultivation, they didn't know anything else. All they did in life was practice cultivation, nothing else. People who belonged to the second category were the extremely stubborn types. They had extremely high requirements when it came to themselves and their capabilities. They expected a great deal from themselves. To progress in cultivation, they were ready to do anything. They didn't spare any effort on their path of cultivation. Their only goal was to enhance their cultivation. For cultivation, they didn't stop fighting and push themselves to the limit. They would kill their enemies without hesitation. That kind of stubborn cultivator would always progress by leaps and bounds. Those 2 categories of people could progress very quickly on the path of cultivation. Those women belonged to the first category. Their hearts were pure. Even though it was impossible for a person's heart to remain absolutely pure, they were still much purer than other people. Besides, Lin Feng belonged more to the second category than the first. While he had removed some of the pollution from his heart, his greatest strength was his expectations of himself. He was extremely stubborn and was determined to continue growing stronger. The sounds of battle filled the air. The atmosphere was trembling violently with the shock waves. Duan Tianlang was watching the battle with a look of astonishment. His confidence had completely disappeared. 5 cultivators at the 5th Xianqi layer were surprisingly being suppressed. If Lin Feng wanted to kill them, he could. How could Duan Tianlang not be scared? Lin Feng glanced over at Duan Tianlang, which made him feel even more nervous as coldness invaded his heart. "Come," said Lin Feng indifferently, which stupefied Duan Tianlang. At that moment, Lin Feng was looking at him in a particularly scornful way. A moment before, Duan Tianlang had acted as if he was standing high above everyone. He looked down on Lin Feng and behaved arrogantly. But at this moment, his 5 accomplices were completely suppressed, and Duan Tianlang had returned to being a scared, whimpering dog. In Lin Feng's eyes, Duan Tianlang was the scum of the world. In the past, Duan Tianlang was much stronger than Lin Feng, but at that moment, Lin Feng had the power to look down on him. In the past, Lin Feng was nothing in front of Duan Tianlang. He was extremely arrogant, but at that moment he was powerless in front of Lin Feng. He was nothing more than an insect. Apart from dread, Duan Tianlang's heart was filled with a mixture of strange feelings. He used to be a majestic and powerful noble. But at that moment, everything had changed. Lin Feng just glanced at Duan Tianlang for a second, and then looked at the battle again. Those 5 people all released their spirits. Surprisingly, they mainly had weapon spirits. They all began to use energy attacks in an attempt to break free from the formation. They were all extremely strong. Lin Feng was becoming more and more curious. He really wanted to know who they were. "I don't believe that you can remain unperturbed when facing death," thought Lin Feng. He then released some terrifying deadly energy. The people on the ground were all astonished. Lin Feng looked at one of the 5 cultivators and his eyes grew ferocious. Lin Feng's eyes turned pitch black as he released some deadly qi and sword intent. Die, said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone. Then Lin Feng started moving like the wind and rushed towards that cultivator of the 5th Xianqi layer. The other 4 cultivators sensed that Lin Feng was attacking and started to tremble. While Lin Feng was attacking, they couldn't do much, they could barely move. Chapter 490. Life and Death Gamble. I deserve to die 10,000 deaths? Lin Feng was staring at his interlocutor and smiling coldly. Well, before I die, tell me who you are, what is your status? Wait until the moment before your death and I will tell you, said that person, still not revealing his status. In Shuiyu, there were people who were hidden in the shadows. Very few people knew who they were. They were the most mysterious group of the country. In order to be part of this group, people had to be at least at the Xianqi layer. In the Imperial City, they were always present. The Imperial clan was extremely strong for 2 reasons. One was because of their blood spirit, the other one was that group of elite troops. One of their missions was to kill rebels within the country. Lin Feng, you are the Marquis of Yangzhou and you came into the Imperial City with an army. That is an extremely serious crime. You and your army will die, all of you, said that middle-aged man in a cold and detached tone. After killing you, I will kill everyone you brought with you. None of you respect the laws of Shuiyu, so I will give all of you the death penalty. None of you will be left alive. How aggressive and arrogant, thought the people on the ground. They were all looking at him with admiration. Shi Qiong was already very strong, but his father was much stronger. He was probably stronger than those 5 cultivators of the 5th Xianqi layer, which meant that he had at least broken through to the 6th Xianqi layer. At such high levels, a single cultivation layer would make a huge difference. A cultivator of the 6th Xianqi layer was much stronger than a group of cultivators at the 5th Xianqi layer. Everyone was trying to guess what that person's social status was. Duan Tianlang and those 5 cultivators of the 5th Xianqi layer looked like they revered and worshipped him. So wasn't that person's social status much higher than them? Duan Tianlang was looking at him with admiration and respect, so what was his status? He looked majestic and released a commanding presence. The affairs of the Imperial City were very mysterious. Many people couldn't understand the affairs of the city. All they could do was guess. In the past, most people thought that cultivators of the 3rd and 4th Xianqi layer were amazing. But after the genius competition of Shuiyu, stronger and stronger cultivators were revealing themselves from the shadows. There were many people who were hiding from the public eyes. Apart from cultivators of the 4th Xianqi layer, there were even cultivators of the 5th Xianqi layer who were hidden, and now there was someone even stronger. Sorry, but what you are saying is absolutely unjustified. Those people are not an army, they belong to my sect. They are lone cultivators from the Yunhai sect who traveled to the Imperial City with me. I am not acting as the Qixia Marquis today. Instead, I am acting as the patriarch of the Yunhai sect. In the past, Duan Tianlang destroyed the Yunhai sect, and today, as the patriarch of the Yunhai sect, I will avenge the Yunhai sect. What is so inappropriate about that? Said Lin Feng loudly and firmly. Many people were gobsmacked. If Lin Feng had come to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu using his status as the patriarch of the Yunhai sect and people from his sect had followed him into the Imperial City, then technically it didn't break any laws. He had the right to seek revenge for his sect. Besides, what do you intend to do? By attacking me while hiding your social status. You're saying that I committed a crime. What gives you the right to speak when you don't even know a thing? Said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone. He coldly stared at his interlocutor and remained unyielding. Even though he was weaker than his interlocutor, his words weren't weak at all. Lin Feng was fearless. Even if Lin Feng had to risk his life, who knew who would come out victorious? The result couldn't be predicted. Lin Feng understood that arguing with him was useless. Strength was the most important thing in this world. Strength would determine who was right and who was wrong. That was the basic principle in this world of cultivation. If your fist was strong enough to silence the opposition, it didn't matter if you were wrong. Lin Feng couldn't afford to act as the weaker side in front of that person. Otherwise the other person would have the advantage. As expected, when Lin Feng said that, a terrifying qi invaded the atmosphere. It was extremely frightening and created a roar as it tore through the sky. It sounded like a furious flood dragon. The man wanted to use force to win. Lin Feng didn't look at that man again. He turned his head to look at the cultivator of the 5th Xianqi layer. He smiled coldly and said, "You still haven't told me who you are. If he doesn't want to speak, you should tell me." That person looked extremely tense and nervous. He was shaking from head to toe. Lin Feng's hand was surrounded by an extremely sharp deadly qi. Lin Feng kept his hand pressed against that person's throat the entire time. He hadn't changed his position. That person hadn't tried to break free from Lin Feng because he could feel Lin Feng's sharp qi pressing against his throat. If Lin Feng had sensed any movements, Lin Feng would have immediately killed him. Therefore, he didn't dare to move at all. At that moment, Lin Feng was forcing him to talk. Shi Qiong's father also looked down at him with an ice-cold look in his eyes. That cultivator of the 5th Xianqi layer felt that the pressure surrounding his was growing. He felt like he was carrying 2 gigantic mountains, one on each shoulder. It was clear to him that he couldn't reveal their social status. It was their most basic rule, and it would be enforced now that an officer was present.